You are listening to the Dental C-Suite, the strategic alliance for independent dentists, covering the three pillars of practice success, people, profit, and patience from the Dental C-Suite. Here are your hosts.
Welcome back. I'm Charlie, and joined by Kyle and Jessica for another podcast on the Dental C-Suite. Today's topic is it's not about you, the clinic owner. It's about your team. Your team actually determines how far you're going to go. And to start that off, I'm going to pass it over to Jessica.
I love talking about people, team, people management. Yeah, I mean, exactly that. I could talk about this every episode, and I probably do, so I won't talk about it too long. But your team definitely determines how far you go. You know, you have a high-performing team, you're going to have a high-performing clinic. And really, I think if we kind of strip that down and go back to the basics, how you treat your team will also determine how much you can grow. And we can go into so many different angles from that, because I know saying that means one thing, but then when you're treating your team well, what does that mean? Does it mean what you're paying them, your benefits, what you're offering them, the latest technology that you're providing them with, the latest tools? It can go in so many different
Absolutely.
There's so,
I think
so many directions we can go with this. Yeah.
100%.
I
Then
think it's
one
of those.
Yeah, sorry. I was gonna say, Charlie, you're gonna have to say, well, that sounds great, but that's not realistic. And Kyle's gonna have to say, well, sure, we could probably market that, but that's not really something that we should market, or so.
Absolutely.
So
I
yeah.
think the context here is if you had two equal dentists, and I know the dentist will never allow them to
Except
be
that they're equal.
Yeah.
yeah. There's always a fundamental difference between them, and that's very true. But if you had two equal dentists, and they were both great clinicians, absolutely spectacular work, the one that will go further, I think, has the better HR systems in place, has the longer tenured team, may not be the more skilled team on an individual basis, but the more tenured and more cohesive team will always go further than the dentist with not so great a cohesive team, not the systems in place and all that. And so I think this is one thing that dentists maybe don't focus on enough, is the fact that you are only as good as your team. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things that as a dentist, most appointments you are maybe, in the restorative you're a little bit higher, but you're maybe only 10 to 25% of that patient's life cycle in that clinic that you see them.
Yep.
So all the other time is with the RDAs, the admin, the hygienists, all your other support staff. So it's really key to make sure that those systems and people are operating at kind of the peak of their abilities to ensure that those patients actually enjoy coming and want to come.
For
So yeah, so Jessica, I would kind of pass it to you in terms of some like simple systems to have in place to kind of ensure that quality care is take into account. What would be like one or two things that would look like?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think so it starts with having just general HR people management systems in place. So, um, and these might sound like things that don't directly affect patient care, or the quality of patient care or how your staff is performing, but it does. So bear with me. That's starting with your onboarding or your training system or strategy for new hires, making sure that they're comfortable in their new role, they're confident, they know who they can go to ask for help. And I was just thinking, when you said if you have a cohesive team that works really well together, they might not be, on an individual basis the most skilled, but if you have a team that works really well together, someone that's struggling in one area will feel comfortable to go ask someone who is excelling in that area. So yeah, I just want to say 100% agree with that statement you made earlier. But as far as staying on track here and what the question you asked me about, other systems, do you have performance management system in place? Are you doing annual reviews are you doing biannual reviews with your employees? Are you having regular check-ins? Are you asking them what's working well? What could improve their um, improve, what their work setting. Yeah, those are just basic systems that are in place, but go a long way in developing a high performing, long lasting team.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
If for
Uh,
you, or go ahead, Kyle.
I'm
You
just
got
going to
something to add
jump
with
in,
that?
like, on
Yep.
this topic, two expressions immediately jump to mind. First is the African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Mm,
Yes.
And
So
then
true. Yeah.
the second aspect of that, or second cliche, is the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. And you know, teams are, as Jess was mentioning, you might have one or two people that, and you, Charlie, that aren't the objectively the best at their specific role. But if you've got a great functioning team together, they are so much better than a whole bunch of individuals just doing their job. So
for
yeah,
sure.
I mean,
Sorry.
Absolutely.
I was
Go
that's
gonna
ahead,
okay.
say
Jess.
there's nothing worse than going into a new clinic and not even knowing how the sterilization system works. Like, it's a new autoclave you've never seen before, and I don't want to break anything. I don't want to touch it and do something wrong. And you ask a senior staff that's been there, and they say, "We'll figure it out, and I don't have time." There's nothing worse, because then you feel like I will never be able to ask for clarification on anything or ask for help, and like, how am I ever going to fit in here? So that just like that sets the bar right away.
Yeah, and
No,
I
for sure.
think is. Oh, sorry, I'm going to cut you
No,
off
you
again,
go ahead.
Charlie.
Finish on the thought.
We're just
Finish
gonna
on the
keep
thought.
Yeah,
cutting Charlie off here. So.
No, I've gotten it
that's
written
okay.
down, so we're good.
That's okay. The other really important thing to consider about when you're thinking about your team as a business owner, as a clinician, is who you're getting your advice from. How are you learning about the best practices and how to do things? It's one thing, like, your in-office team that you're working with, or that's working for you. But it's also really important to think about who are your advisors, who's your board of directors, who is your C-suite, that are helping guide you and giving you the advice to make the executive level decisions that you need to make. So that
Totally.
was the
No,
other point that I wanted to jump in there with Charlie.
no,
100%.
and you make a great point on that, Kyle, because, and I mean, it's why we made this podcast. The three of us, those
Yeah,
kind of three major angles, but it goes beyond that too. This goes into your tax advisor, it goes into your wealth advisor, all those other things that, building for the future, and how that's actually going to, how this week's work, this month's work is going to equate to that stuff down the road. So, making sure that you kind of have that entire thing in your field.
I'm so sorry. I'm so
You're
sorry.
good. It's all good.
I'm so sorry. I tried not to react, but I did. And I'm really sorry.
No,
for those of you who are just on audio only, Jess's cat just happened to walk into frame, and
I'm sorry.
no, perfect. So Jessica, I'm going to go back to you with a question here, because obviously building teams, is good, but how do you actually go about building a team? Like, how do you make it cohesive? I mean, you don't just wave a magic wand and say, be cohesive. How do you go about doing that?
Well, I'll kind of go back to Kyle's point. It's who do you have advising you, and not to toot my own horn, but getting someone that understands people management in to help you develop a team is huge. And so you have to start from the basics, and you have to think, okay, what do I want this team to look like, and how am I going to get there? And then from there, you think, okay, what systems do I need in place? And then it goes back to, I need to make sure that I've got an objective but structured um, hiring process. I have a really solid, thorough onboarding and training system for new employees, and I need to make sure that there's strong communication systems in place. And that's not just the regular check-ins with employees. That's making sure that employees know that they can know how to communicate with their colleagues, and when to ask for assistance or when to ask for guidance, that kind of thing. So I guess, I don't think there's one solid, this is how you create a good team. You have to be willing to work and build that team. You can't just say, I want a good team and I'm going to put these systems in place and then it's going to be fine. You've got to be able
Right.
to think like, okay, I have these systems in place, or I've created these systems, but how am I actually going to put them into practice and make sure that, um, I'm uh, working on them regularly and checking to make sure that they work, and what benchmarks do I have in place to make sure that my team is developing the way that I want them to, and that they are a cohesive team. So
Right.
again, a
Well,
roundabout answer, but yeah.
on
No,
that note of cohesive team, throughout my entrepreneurial journey, I've always been told the expression, be very slow to hire, but very fast to fire.
Mm.
So, how do you advise Jess on, in the interview process, getting a sense of how a candidate will fit in to your culture and into your existing team? Like, is there a trick there or something that
I don't
you
Yeah.
you can suggest?
I don't think there's a trick per se, but I always say that you have to have the right person interviewing. If you're not someone that can um, look beyond certain qualities or certain things that a person has said, then you shouldn't be interviewing. You need to be objective. But no, I don't think there's any tricks. I think you just need to know what you're looking for in a candidate, and know that even if this person isn't displaying all of those qualifications, I might be able to work with them. They're trainable. I might be able to work with them to become um that person that I need them to be in that position. So
Right.
honestly, I think it's almost more or equally the interviewer themselves than it is just the asking the right questions and that kind of thing. But I will say asking behavioral questions, or hypothetical situation questions are really good tools um, for helping you find the right candidate. Absolutely. And tailoring those questions to fit exactly to your clinic.
Thanks.
okay. I'm gonna hit you with something here, Jessica,
Oh no.
and this may end up in an argument.
Okay.
So, one of the approaches I took when hiring people, yeah, I'm interested to see your take on this.
Okay.
So I would vet their resume, make sure that they, so for example, I'm hiring for an RDA, okay,
Okay.
and make sure they have, RDA qualifications, all that kind of stuff. When I would bring them in, because actually this is unique in the dental world too, is working interviews. That's not something that typically anywhere else is. You actually bring them in and they work with you for half a day, 3 hours, a full day, whichever. And so we would make use of that. And one of the things that the way I would do it is I would bring them in, I would sit them down with me, and I would go over kind of the HR questions, like, are you looking for a full-time job? You're living in the area, relocating, make sure that wage expectations kind of line up, hours line up, all that kind of stuff. And then I would actually tell them, basically, we're going to throw you to the wolves today. But I want you to understand the only thing that we're worried about today is your fit within the team. I want you to ask questions. I want you to, don't just assume that you know how to do things. And we're going to kind of guide you in certain areas as to, this procedure and stuff like that. But we're going to kind of put you through your paces. But I was always very specific to tell them that I don't care if you make mistakes. Okay. I mean, obviously there's a basic level of, competence you have to
Professional
have within the,
competency.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But at the same time too, I'm not expecting you to be able to take all the patients. And many times, like I introduced them to their team lead for the day, and they would go through the day, and at the end of the day I would sit them down real quick and just say, did you have any questions and stuff like that. But I would actually go to the team and say, what do we think? Did we like them? Did we get along with them? Were they easy to work with? Did they listen? And I'll admit, sometimes it didn't work out. We hired the wrong person. We found that out real quick.
Oh, sure, that
But a lot of,
happens all the time.
yeah, but a lot of times too,
Yeah.
a lot of times we did end up finding like the best team members because we just threw them to the wolves and sink or swim. So I mean, probably not the most professional way of doing it, and so, but I did feel like I found some success. But I'm interested to hear.
Yeah.
Good,
You want
bad?
my opinion on it?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do,
no,
absolutely.
I don't think you should discount yourself saying it's not the most professional way to do it. I mean, do you prep them ahead of time that this is part of our interview process? Is that
Yes, they are aware that
fantastic?
yes, they're
That's
coming in for a working interview, and yes, I'm going to
good.
kind of put you through paces of the position.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's not just come on in and you'll be here for half an hour for an interview, and surprise, you're
Yeah.
actually working for half
Yeah.
the day.
I would strongly
And it was
recommend
paid.
against
100% it was
that.
paid.
So very good. Thank you. That was going to be my next question. So very good. Um,
Yep.
but no, I think that's so back to my other comment there about making sure you have the right interviewer in place.
Yep.
Sounds like you're the right person to be conducting interviews then, Charlie, because you're asking the right questions. You're asking about, you're looking for organizational culture fit and team fit, which that's super important. So I'll just say very good, kudos. But
Thank you.
no, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great way to do it. And I think as long as you and everyone else in the team can just keep in mind that this is someone that's interviewing. So even though, they're doing their job that they do and they know how to do, it's a new clinic, so they might be a little bit
Yep.
nervous. So if they can look past certain things, then that's fantastic. But if I think it's great if that person is asking questions, if they're saying, I'm sorry, I'm running behind. I don't know obviously how the sterilization system works. Like I'm just going
Yep.
to put my instruments here, or I'm just going to, I don't have time to wipe down the x-ray machine, like those kind of things. That says a lot about a person. It says that they're not
Well, and
hesitant
that
to ask for
was
help. They're willing to adapt. Like,
exactly.
yeah. So I would agree with your process. Yes.
Okay. No fight for today.
Bummer. I was looking for some good fisticuff.
Yeah. I mean, we could dive into that though, and that could be a separate conversation, you and I, Charlie, like little things that you could add in just to make it even more effective, or, certain questions that you could ask, or,
Yeah.
yeah, but no, I think that's a great technique.
No,
Yeah.
perfect. Because I mean, there's obviously the entire flip side of that is that it's a very long process, and there's lots of those behavior questions and kind of situational questions, and see how they answer. And
Mhm.
I guess like on that side, I always felt that could be prepared for, whereas
Yeah.
putting them with a team member, you're going to find out real quick, is this person somebody I can get along with, or
Mhm.
I want them out of here right away.
For sure. And even just
And
their mind.
admittedly, we had that sometimes where like I would after an hour like, sorry, but it's not going to work out.
It's yeah. And that's where you could
This
even
is
just schedule them for like three patients.
yep.
Right?
And typically
Or is
it
that
was
what you
very
do?
short. It was 3 hours that we
Oh,
typically did.
perfect. Yeah.
So it kept it short. And yeah, but
'Cause,
no.
some
Um,
people are just
go ahead.
really good at interviewing. And
Yes.
so and, you can ask all the right questions, they're just very good at interviewing, but then and they present as the best candidate, but then when they get into the position, that's just not, and it's to no fault of the interviewer.
Yep.
It's people are just sometimes
Some
very
people just have that skill set for the interview and not
Yes.
Yep.
necessarily for
Because
the clinical.
Exactly, Kyle.
interviewing
Yeah.
interviewing is an art. It absolutely is.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things that I think there's a lot of times that some candidates that would be a good fit do get lost in the interview process because they're
Absolutely.
just not good at it.
Yeah.
But they would be a very good fit. And then vice versa, people who interview very well and then this is not a fit for you at all, and you find that out 24 hours later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kyle, question for you. Um, Cohesive teams. How does that impact marketing?
Well, I don't know if it necessarily directly impacts marketing, but it's certainly going to impact your sales cycle and um, the conversion of your marketing into revenue. If you don't
Right.
have a cohesive team and it's palpable in your clinic, as soon as a new patient walks in and they can sense tension in the air, they're probably not going to stick around. They don't really want to be coming to a clinic where they're not sure if scalpels are going to be thrown across the room into someone's back or what. We as humans can just sense it whenever we go into a new environment. If
Right.
there's
Sure, you
tension, if
feel
there's
the tension.
friction,
Yeah.
um, it could be a coffee shop, it could be a dental clinic, it could be anything. If there's something going on behind the scenes, it becomes very evident to people observing. So not having a cohesive team is going to impact your conversion of new patients and old patients, or returning
Right.
patients. If someone's been coming to your clinic for office for a number of years and they come for a cleaning and they can just sense that something's amiss in the operatory, they might
Yep.
start looking for a new doctor somewhere else.
Right.
So
Patients pick up on those things.
they
Absolutely.
do very much. Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. They do.
I mean, Charlie, can I ask you from
Absolutely.
the numbers aspect of things? We talk about, or I talk about how to, have a great onboarding system set up and take the time to train the employees and provide them with any external training that they need.
Yep.
Um, I mean, if we're looking at a cost standpoint or looking at things from a cost standpoint, um, how important is setting aside a certain amount in your budget to ensure that you have, team development opportunities and um or I guess maybe I'll ask you, do you see the clinics that you work with, are they setting aside a certain amount for developing a team or creating that
Well,
cohesive team?
yes, definitely some do. Um, and I would definitely say the teams, like the clients that do it, do have a bit more of a cohesive team. And you can tell that the doctor owner is also a little bit more involved with their team, which I think that in a topic of itself is a big part of team cohesion.
For sure.
If the doctor's involved with kind of those daily things, the daily huddle, just being present, maybe they don't actually have anything to contribute, but they're there.
Mhm.
I think that goes a long way to that cohesiveness. But yeah, so some do budget for it. Some just say we're doing team building, which I typically never say no to. I mean, unless it's, you know, a Mexico getaway for everybody on the team, and it's that might be a little bit different. But no, if we're doing
No
team
problem
building,
with
in the
that.
city, yeah, no, I'm sure.
Uh,
But no, I
yeah.
think it's one of those things that it does need to be planned for. Um, and I've seen teams do it monthly. I've seen, and on kind of a smaller side of things, they do a little bit more of a lunch, kind of set aside an hour, and they do a lunch. And they kind of in that time frame too, they do celebrations of lunches or birthdays for any staff members for that month. So they kind of set aside that time. I've seen people do a little bit more bigger things on a quarterly basis where they kind of go off site to something.
Mhm.
I've even seen them, go to like a psychology, like not a psychologist, but something along those lines where they just kind of like talk through things.
Yes, yeah.
And I thought that was
I've
interesting.
seen
I
that
haven't actually
too.
seen that.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So I've seen that happen once, and they spoke highly of it. So it's the only time I've seen it, so I don't have anything to compare it against. But yeah, I would kind of point this question back to you, Jessica, and say like, is there certain team building things that are like actually good? Like is the team going to get their nails done together? Is that a good team building aspect, or should they be going to a psychologist and going through a list of things?
Yeah, I mean,
Where does that come from?
again, I don't think there's one right or wrong answer or um, something you should or should do more than others. It
Yeah.
probably just depends, or not probably. It does depend on where your team's at. But I guess I'll look at this from a previous dental employee's perspective. That
Yep.
same kind of thing that you're saying. Like I worked for a um, fantastic owner in Saskatoon, and she did great things for her team. Every person that was going on mat leave, anyone that was getting married, anyone that had a birthday, there was always something acknowledged, and I think that's super cool. And it was kind of like, okay, like birthdays, whoever had the previous birthday brought a cake or a treat or whatever for the next person, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
she made sure that those kind of things were acknowledged. So from that angle, it's something that's simple to do, and it brings a team together. It's fun, and
Yeah.
we'd go out for supper every so often, or if we hit clinic production goals, which we've talked about in other episodes, she'd bring in a bigger meal, or like a more expensive meal kind of thing. And
Yep.
but then I think it's good to do things. I do think it's good to do things outside of the clinic as well. You're asking people to be together outside of clinic or outside of work hours, but if it's something fun, like it's going to like a team leadership retreat or something like that. You're not asked to do something work related outside of work. You're doing something fun. Take them bowling. Go bowling, right? Have your Christmas party at a restaurant outside of
Yeah.
celebrate outside of the clinic. Like, I think those are easy things to do, and things that you should be doing as a clinic owner.
Now, I've got a question for you, Charlie.
Yep.
I'd kind of brought us to the subject of your C-suite team and that advisory board kind of level, and you
Yep.
mentioned tax advisor and wealth manager.
Yep.
How do you see um, the clinic elevating up into those roles, or the clinic owner leveraging those team members to get to their end goals?
Well, and I think this would be a topic for the whole other podcast, probably a whole other season of podcasts. Is the fact that when you can think longer term strategies, it makes the today, this week, this month decisions a lot more clear because you have the end game in mind.
Mm.
And I mean, and I mean that goes for anything you do. I mean,
Yeah.
if for example, if you're trying to buy a house, right, and you want to buy a house the next year, you're not going to buy the new car or the next financing piece because that's going to affect you purchasing a house. So it's that same kind of mentality that it's like, okay, that decision does not support the end goal of 10 years from now. So I think a lot of times it actually makes decisions a lot easier here and now, and a lot more and it almost just becomes a path to walk rather than figuring it out day to day as to what's next, what do I got to do to make this work. And because it just becomes backwards engineering. If you have a date and a number in mind that you want to retire at, it's okay, when we get there, we pull the pin and that's it, that's all. And from my perspective, we track all these things on a monthly and yearly basis, so it really becomes, we know what we need to do this month, so we know if we're on target or not.
Yeah.
Quarter to quarter, there's kind of no ambiguity that at tax time saying, oh crap, I short. We know exactly at tax time that we're ahead of the game and we've actually cut a year off of your time. So bringing in kind of that whole backside of things, that isn't kind of the patient facing, is really important. And I think it'll show up in the team aspect too, because it'll make you as a dental owner a lot less stressed because you're not always thinking in your head of, oh, I should do that or should I do this? It's nope, this is the path we're on, this is where we're going, and this is how we're going to do it. And so I think it shows up in that side of things too.
Nice. Yeah. It's it reminds me of the notion of Zen archery, where
Yep.
your goal is to hit the bullseye, but if you're constantly thinking about hitting the bullseye, you're always questioning, am I doing this right? But if you know where you're
Yep.
going, you just work back, reverse, as you said, reverse engineer everything, make sure that everything you're doing it perfectly, and then the outcome is inevitable. You're going to hit the bullseye if
Yep.
you've done all the little steps perfectly. So
Exactly. Kyle, I got a question for you actually. So I'm going to attribute cohesive teams to more friendly teams, they're all They're all friends amongst each other.
Yeah.
Is that team easier to work with from a marketing standpoint because maybe they have like more intriguing like content? They might be the team to record those funny flossing videos and the doing funny things. Like, is that an easier team to work with because you're like, perfect, I got so much more content to work with? Or
Yes, yes, for those reasons, but
okay,
also what I would say is if you have a cohesive team, everybody in your clinic, again, knows what the goals are for the clinic. Everybody is moving in the same direction. And so it's just a lot easier to get buy-in, I guess, for lack of a better term.
yeah,
Um, from a marketing perspective, I can call up the office and maybe the office manager isn't available or the doctor isn't available to answer my question, but the receptionist probably
yeah,
can. If you're a cohesive team, everybody knows what everybody else is supposed to be doing. They
yeah.
might not know exactly the details of the job, but um, yeah, from a marketing perspective, it's certainly a lot easier to be working with a cohesive team than it is one that's all fractured and everybody's working in silos and the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing or supposed to be doing. So um, having having a cohesive team will make your marketing tasks easier. And yeah, if you want to jump on the latest TikTok dance trend and create those videos, people are going to be more amenable to those suggestions and ideas.
There's a little bit more buy-in to actually do it rather than this is just another
Yeah,
silly task in the
you're
office.
not trying to convince 4, 5, 6, 10 different people. Okay, now you're going to do this step, and this is why they're just like, yeah, this will be fun. Okay, we can all look silly together.
Yeah. On the
So
flip side of that, those teams, do you have them reaching out to you to say, hey, can we do
I
this?
haven't, I
No?
haven't,
Okay.
but I'm I'm also not a huge proponent of a lot of those things. I
Gotcha.
will often tell clients like, if that's something you want to do, great, go
I
do
guess
it.
that goes
But
into the whole branding side of things.
it
That
goes
is
into the
that
whole
your
branding
brand?
thing,
Yeah.
and again, looking at the strategy. What are your end goals?
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to keep my work aligned to those end goals. And yeah, these
Yeah.
things can kind of be the path that zigzags a little bit, or you're doing it for the team building aspect
Right.
of it as much as you are because you think you guys can all dance in unison, that you're going to start attracting hundreds or tens or even one or two new patients a month. Yeah, I don't find those things to be a general driver of new patient channels and funnels for you, but they are great for team building and cohesion. So on the one hand, you need to have a cohesive team in order to do it, but on the other, they can be a great way to make your team more cohesive.
Right. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Good. Um, does anybody else have anything that they want to add to this?
I don't think so. I mean, I
So,
think we've kind of hit it all that, you really are you're the sum of your team, and the
Yeah,
more cohesive your team is, the better off your clinic will be long term.
absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
No. Yeah, no,
And and don't forget
yeah,
to build yourself a network and a team of advisors. For
yes,
me as well as as an entrepreneur as well, having the right advisors around me and the people that I can lean on to for subject matter expertise, whether it's HR, whether it's booking, whether it's tax planning, legal, whatever. As an entrepreneur, I've spent a lot of time building that team around me.
no, exactly.
Me too.
And I think
Yeah.
that ties back into the fact that, you as a dentist and the dental owner, your most valuable time is chairside with patients. And so anything that takes any more than an hour a month away from that is probably worth some, exterior help on that side of things because yeah, you need to be focused on the patient side of things, but also building the business and stuff. So yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it.
Thanks
See
a
ya.
lot. You've been listening to the Dental C-Suite. For show notes or to ask a question to the board, visit www.thedentalcsuite.com.